no one cares the way the owner does. No one understands the pain. When they go to sell the business, they have so much invested. And it's why if you're approaching a CEO or an owner for equity, you need to understand you're asking them, like you're saying, hey, I think I should be the godfather of your child, right? Or like, you should write me into the will. Like, you don't know the suffering they went through. You just see it as equity.
Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now for your host, Matt Haney.
How we doing, folks? Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Scalability Code. Today, we're joined by an old friend of mine, Adam Boyd. Adam, nice to see you again. Adam is the owner of Trinity Training and Development and is one of my favorite sales ninjas and leadership development people I've come across. So, Adam, thanks for joining me.
Matt, so good to be with you. I remember you working at Trigger Point.
Yes, that was a minute ago. 2012.
And then there was you.
Hyperware.
You were with Denver.
Yep.
Right. But before you guys, I still have those sand bells when you guys worked together on
that.
that. And then you guys did the.
Thanks for coming on, Adam. We start this the same way every time. I ask my folks to go back and think of some of their earliest entrepreneurial memories. And I want to know if you can think back to when you either were impressioned by an entrepreneur or someone, lit a fire under you that said, hey, you can do this whole entrepreneurial thing. So anybody come to mind, any stories, any people, any times in your life where you're like, I can do this?
I will tell you a couple stories, but I wasn't the kid who was trying to start a business. I wanted to make some money, but I always had a use for that money. And when I was 12, I loved buying comic books. And by the way, back then it wasn't cool. Now it's cool.
Really cool.
Back then you were kind of a dork.
Yep.
But I would work at this comic book store and I was there every Saturday. Finally, the people behind the counter who owned it said, hey, do you just want to come help us do this stuff? Like, we'll pay you in comics. And I loved it. And I was there Friday night, all day Saturday. And they would just give me a big stack of comics and send me home because they had all this inventory that wasn't going to move.
Of course.
I could price things. I knew what things were. I think I ran the register a little bit. And that was this really sweet season in my life. And then this isn't about money. But I then started, and I'm learning who I am kind of in my mid-40s. I played high school football, and I really wanted us to be good because we'd really sucked. We were 0-10 my sophomore year. We got shut out 4 times. And as I kind of became a senior, I started saying, hey, we're going to organize our own practices outside of the coaches. And we started doing that in the summer. And I said, our stadium looks like crap. We need to clean it up. So I started galvanizing people around that. And I'm not necessarily the most charismatic. I just have a vision. I'm like, dadgummit, we're going to do this. And what do I need to do to get it done? And then I did something similar in college with our fraternity. It was more like, how do we really build this thing? How do we raise more money? And then in terms of really impressing me about entrepreneurship, the person who has really stamped me, and I don't have anything close to his level of genius, effectiveness, or success, is Jeff Sandifer, guy who's done a lot in education, oil and gas, and energy. And when I was at Acton, he just impressed upon me so much certain thoughts that if you knew what he taught, you would hear it spilling out of me left and right. And
that's awesome.
I'm just trying to move our business in those directions.
Well, I know Jeff. I don't know him as well as you do. I actually ran into Jeff in a hotel in Aspen 15 years ago. And I think it's about the time you were in the Acton program, which I still laugh about. I got denied twice. And then the next year is when Robin Weekly Bruce started. Do you know Robin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Robin and I laugh about this all the time because her kid and my kid are in the same grade at school. So she's like, Matt, you're not a failure. You're not. I mean, you didn't get in Acton. If I was there, you'd have gotten in. You're not a failure. She's hilarious. So anyway, I got to hear Jeff speak at one of your Acton events, and then I ran into him at a hotel, and we chatted for a sec. He's an incredible entrepreneur and a giver. He's done a lot of great things for a lot of people.
Oh, yes.
And
I think they brought me into that class just to kind of see if they could help make me get through it. And just they're like, how much hard work can one person do who isn't
Adam, he's
naturally
like a
gifted?
passion project. I mean, we're just going to see if we can start
I
him.
was. I think I was. So
All right. So I first met you when you were taking, I think it was during the Sandler days. Tell me about those times and sort of how that impression where you are today. And give us some backstory on what Sandler is.
All right. So Sandler is a worldwide sales training business, and they operate through franchisees. Started in the early 80s by a guy named David Sandler. Back then, they were kind of a hotel business. You would show up whenever Sandler would come through. And then it turned into weekly classes, and then it's expanded. They went through an acquisition several years ago, and so they've updated their brand and some of what they're doing. But Carl Scheibel had come to Acton. He had taught a session on sales. And he had said, hey, I do this assessment on people. If you're looking at sales as a career, come talk to me. I can run this assessment on you, and we can give some feedback on yourself. And I was at Acton, didn't know what I was going to do. Everyone else was like, had a plan and a vision. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was just trying to understand the financial modeling. So I get out and I meet with Carl, and he runs me through the assessment. And he says, you're not going to, this is going to be really hard for you. You shouldn't do this. You should go do something else. But he says to me, and I'm like, well, can I work for you? Like, I'll empty your trash.
Right.
And I'm about to sneeze, so give me a minute.
Right in the middle. Adam Boyd, the trash emptier, but such a testament to you for you to say, I'll do it all. I'll work harder than anybody else in the room. Just give me a chance.
Well, and what he said, he's like, bear in mind, I had an MBA at this point. He said, I'll pay you $15 an hour for everybody that you book, every business owner you book into this event. I'll pay you, I think it was $200 or $100. And he said, and if I close it, I'll give you, I think, 10%. And so I sat with him like by myself. I sat in a windowless room. I just had a book and a phone, and there were some posters on the wall.
It's called a closet.
Called. It's what it felt like. And I just cold called for him. And so that was brutal. But I thought I'd be there 3 months, maybe 6 months. I'd learn a lot. And that's sort of a misnomer. I learned, but through pain. And then I ended up, not because I liked it, but because I'm too stubborn to quit. I just stayed 9 years, and we trained people, we sold to CEOs, we consulted, and we got connected with a lot of people in Austin, throughout Texas. And that was very formative for how I think about a lot of challenges in sales. I probably have similar mental frameworks that you do to operations and working with CEOs. And I would love to hear about that at some point.
Yeah. One of the things I remember, you came in and helped us train a couple junior salespeople at Hyperware. And it was the time I learned about the cookbook. And I think that was a Sandler term or something around the fact that you would build your outcome and work backwards into what it took to get to that outcome.
It's like a manufacturing.
It's concept, exactly right. It's like, what's the end output? What are the ingredients required to get to that output? And I'm not going to lie, I still use that technique today a lot on holding people accountable and managing expectations. It's like, I don't know how to get to the end. It's like, you don't start at the end. You get the end goal and then you work backward into it.
What's an example
of those?
I think it's really simple and sort of self-evident in sales. How do you use that concept when you're working like below the CEO with a bunch of people on the operational side? What are some examples of how you get them operationalizing and measuring, like creating measurable activities that they need to engage in?
So one of the things that I really enjoy doing is when we're looking at all of our quarterly projects, when I work with leadership teams, we develop these 90-day projects or goals or rocks, and then we establish milestones for each one of those. So if you look at the rock as the end goal, the recipe, the cookbook that it takes to get there are the 10 milestones, 5 milestones along the way that says I'm on track to getting those. And if you can't get to 2 if you don't start with 1, and you can't skip through it, and we meet on it weekly in terms of accountability that says, hey, in 90 days from now, we're going to have an end output. Okay, good.
Yeah.
What are the 10 things we need to do in order to get there? So that's one thing that I use, which is very simple, but it's effective. And then another thing is we do scorecards or measurables for each department. We have 3 to 10 measurables per department. Every department has to have it. That says, how do we know we're on track on a week-to-week basis? Again, we're not looking at the end goal. We're looking at every single week. We're measuring something. It could be cold calls for sales. It could be cash in the bank for accounting. Who knows? But you're looking at it. and it has to move. It has to change. There has to be some sort of variable associated with every metric. Otherwise, you're just measuring the same shit every week and nothing changes.
How do you help entrepreneurs and the people who work below them? Because I think this is very important. Find the work, because in that measurability, there are things that people are going to do better. But even you, like, you're really gifted. You have an interesting connection of relationship and operations. Like, some of the operations people are like, leave me alone. It's kind of like Shrek.
Yeah.
How do you help? Is there any thought to like getting people into the place where they're thriving because they love the work and they're in a state of flow?
I mean, you've seen this in your sales leadership world and your leadership entrepreneurship world. It's like when you get the right person in the right seat, they immediately start to thrive. And unfortunately, for a lot of visionary entrepreneurs that go out and create this business and wake up tomorrow and figure out how to do it, they don't necessarily go back and ask that person, hey, are you fulfilled? Yes, it's a job, but do you want to show up every day and do what you're doing? Or have we put a square peg in a round hole here and you're just doing it because you need the work? So to your point on relationships, I get to go back and ask those questions with people, not being feared of being the boss. They're going to tell you something different than they tell me. They do it every single time. And that's less than fortunate. But that's the relationship part of it is, are you in the right seat? And by the way, if you're the right person, we can find you the right seat. So I think it's being humble and curious, Adam, and understanding if these people want to do what they're doing every day or they're hitting a paycheck.
I love it.
I want to go back. So Trinity Training and Development spun out of Northwood or there somehow. Yeah. Tell us about Trinity Training and Development. Give me the understanding of what it is, who you're targeting, sort of what the business model is.
Robert Winter had a background in working in the college system with corporate clients doing leadership training. Built this company, really great program called Frontline Leadership. And he largely worked with more of a blue collar industrial clientele who needed frontline supervisor training. So if I talk to you about leadership training, you're going to think about like Covey, you're going to think about Lencioni, and a lot of the stuff is amazing. There's some really good stuff out there. What they don't do is have anything that's very, very practical for the front line. And so you get a lot of people who are doing the work and the next day they're promoted from welder to team lead or supervisor.
Hold on, I want to ask a question. Frontline leader, what does that mean to you, that term? Because I got followed.
No, they are the people like doing the work who actually then start to manage the people doing the work. It's not someone on the 40th floor who's looking at spreadsheets. It's actually the people really close to the assembly line. It's people really close to the project in the field who touch, feel, smell, work side by side with each of the workers every day. That's a frontline leader. And those people, there's almost nothing that's available for them. And if there is, it has to be tailored to their world, right? They don't need to be thinking about regression analysis. They've got to think about precision and manufacturing. They need tools that, hey, when I work with Bob over here, I can help connect with him and understand him, but I don't need to look at like some 16-point chart to understand his motivation. I need to understand some general thoughts about engagement and be able to connect with him and find out what's important to him. So we provide that. Sometimes we train it. Sometimes we train the company to train it. And we provide that leadership. And Northwood, which has been our sales training and sales consulting business, is being rebranded into Trinity Training because it doesn't make sense to have two brands out there, one of which no one really knows.
So distill down Trinity Training's deliverable or what the service offering is to this. I'm guessing it's blue collar service-based industry businesses based on the reference that you just gave me, but I could have made that up.
Hey, it's very practical frontline supervisor training. First time
managers.
That's
not on everything. Any type of just how you operate as an individual, how you manage people, accountability.
Yeah. The things that we're going to cover are, do you understand your role as a leader? Do you understand how to manage different personalities? Can you adjust to those? Can you communicate, coach, hold people accountable, manage change and conflict? And that framework is built and taught. We have clients who take some of our frameworks and they have them in the break room on the walls.
Awesome.
To help remind people of this, almost like you do with EOS.
Yep. So you have a series, and how often is a program, is it a class, is it quarterly? Can I get one-on-one coaching with you on a weekly basis, or how does that work?
So we have a group of 10 trainers. We're actually expanding the bench because we need to go deeper. They go, and sometimes every client has its own set rhythm of working with us. It's usually somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks that they have training going on. And our current program is 10 modules. Some of them, we work with a casino in Arizona. They actually break it up into 2-hour modules. And so they run about 20 trainings, and they actually have a big graduation for people when they're done.
Very
Big
cool.
dinner, whole deal. We work with clients around their schedule because you can't just shut down a manufacturing line just to do some
Right.
training. So
It's funny. You said something earlier that made me chuckle because I hadn't heard this term before. I was working with the mechanical contracting firm up in Cedar Park, Texas. They're a awesome firm, Capital Industries, great group of people that do mechanical contracting work for large commercial buildings. And I got to be friendly after working with them. I did a year deal with them as a fractional COO, and it was great. And one of their plumbing techs was a turned inside manager. And he used to have this joke. He would say, man, I think that guy's more of an outside dog than an inside dog. Because if
house cat versus, yeah.
yeah, house cat. So I thought that was so funny. And he said, my job's to turn the outside dogs into the inside dogs. And I thought that was funny as shit because it's like, it's so true. But those
Yeah.
people don't have a ton of experience or training or background in leadership. They need to get it somewhere.
Well, and here's what you got to think about. A lot of people are really good at getting work done. They have a native skill set.
Yes.
And I'll correlate this here in a minute to the other side of our business, but now you're asking them get work done through people. Well, you can't just do that through sheer force of will. So like in sales, one of the things that happens is you get somebody who's really good at starting new things, finding new deals, working them. That native skill set does not necessarily translate to management. So when we work with CEOs, it's like, whoa, before you promote your best salesperson to a leadership role, you need to consider you're going to lose your best rep unless they're just going to close everybody's deals, in which case you're not actually getting a leader. You're getting just someone who closes and other people prospect for them, and we can set that structure up. But once people go into leadership, they need to learn a new skill set. So sales leaders who have all the degrees and titles in the world, they have to learn to operate differently. They have to hold people accountable, something you and I talk about. They have to learn how to coach. And it's sort of Groundhog Day while they build some systems and some structure and all the other fun stuff.
We also used to say he can't take off the tool belt because you think about it. If you go from, screwing and drilling and banging and cutting, all of a sudden you've done that for your whole career. Taking the tool belt off and setting it aside and having to teach people is a foreign skill to a lot of people. But
Yeah.
they show promise. They need a path. Otherwise, they're going to burn out or retire or whatnot. You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it.
And here's the deal. Think about it. The most credible person is not somebody who has a degree. It's the person who's done it.
That's right.
Right. So one of the things we're thinking about is when we hire trainers, can we hire trainers who have an operational background?
Right.
Because there's this thing in them that you sense like you've done it. Like you've been in a small business and run it day to day.
Yep.
There's a certain thing that I sense in you that I trust. And so with sales leaders, we could talk about this all day. You want to find sales leaders who've kind of gotten beat up doing it. They don't have to have been the best salesperson, but they have so much more credibility if they can say, this happened to me. They don't need to have all the answers. There's a relatability they need.
Yep. No, you got to miss payroll if you've been an entrepreneur. If you hadn't missed payroll, you've never been an entrepreneur. And I think it's one of those things is you just can't teach that skill of experience.
It's a crucible, right? And I was telling people recently, like, the entrepreneur lays awake at night and says, lays or lies. I was an English major, I forget that.
Sure, we'll go both. Lay and lie, sure.
They're in their bed wondering, am I going to go bankrupt? No one else has that concern. Other people go get a job. The entrepreneur is sitting there going, is this going to blow? It's funny. Quick story. I was at a Christmas party and I was standing next to two entrepreneurs, one of whom they just sold their business for over $1 billion. Another one, the business does over $1 billion in sales. And they were talking. And this was fascinating. And I thought, oh my, I was like, at a front row seat to like just something insane. Great, great guys, really successful. And they said, one of them said to the other, when did you stop worrying that the business was going to make it? How big were you? Right. And I didn't know what he'd say 10 million, 20 million. One of them said, at 50 million, I knew we could cut back and still survive. And I just thought, the fear that an entrepreneur has, like, oh, when I get here, it doesn't go away. It just changes and you learn to live with it. And the other guy said, yeah, it was about the same for me. And then he said, and then we got to 100 million and the game completely changed. And then we were worried, is the market going to shift? And for any entrepreneurs or CEOs listening to this, it's like, you just kind of make peace that the challenge is going to be there. And you're the person called to go attack that challenge.
Yeah.
And you make peace and you just get really good at adjusting. And no one in the business is going to feel that but the owner.
Yep, that's exactly right. I helped a client who's become a close friend. He's actually an Aggie who ran an incredible business.
By the way, I love that you had to put that caveat.
I had to do it for you. I know you're not an Aggie. I know where you lie, but he's an Aggie and he'll laugh when he hears this. But I was fortunate to help him run his business for a year and a half, and he gets ready to exit, and we're getting payroll by the dollars clear in the bank. He sells the business the week before Thanksgiving, turns over the operating account with $2,000 in it. Literally $2,000. And for him, it was a challenge to see how he could run that down, yet keep this thing. He's an engineer, so it was funny. But to your point is, we were always a little concerned about whether or not every 2 weeks that number, and you grow yourself right out of business. You literally grow yourself out of cash. Contracts coming in, you're hiring, everything's going together except the cash balance, which is always a challenge.
So good.
All right, so I have an interesting question, and I dealt with this in this mechanical contracting firm that I was involved in. And former project manager and contracting spins out, starts his own mechanical firm. He is the face of the business. He is the head sales guy. He has all the relationships with every one of the general contractors, and he's the one generating sales. We had to transition a sales director, a sales leader into the business. Getting that visionary owner to stop focusing 110% of his time on revenue and pipeline and allowing and trusting this person to then also take over pipeline is a terrible process for an operator to watch. Because every single time when you have a visionary owner running revenue, transitioning revenue over to someone else is fucking painful.
Because you're afraid that they're not going to care like you. They're not going to be as hungry as you. You're thinking all the time, like, that lead cost me $500. Are they actually going to follow up? Mm-hmm. Because the truth is, no one cares the way the owner does. No one understands the pain. And this is why, you've helped people through sales. When they go to sell the business, they have so much invested. And it's why, if you're approaching a CEO or an owner for equity, you need to understand you're asking them, like, you're saying, hey, I think I should be the godfather of your child, right? Or like, you should write me into the will. Like, you don't know the suffering they went through. You just see it as equity, right? And it's a little different. It's different in the tech world.
Yeah, no, that's so well said.
I was talking to a woman yesterday, and she's, through acquisition and just sheer force of will, she's gotten a company about 250 million. And I told her, and she's like, she's still doing a lot of the sales, a lot of it. And they're trying to figure out the sales questions, so they're talking to us. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I tell CEOs is, one, you need to understand sales. Whether you come from an engineering background, a product background, a finance background, you need to understand it so you can call BS. Two, you need to be involved. Doesn't mean it's your all day, every day, but you need to be involved. Three, you definitely need to be brought in on deals to help bring a certain level of reassurance. So if it's a large deal and your sales director, your head of sales, your CRO is not leveraging you, that person is an idiot. Look, there are exceptions. And when there's an exception, let's call it an exception. Like, if Matt's my CEO and Matt's the name in this space and I don't know how to use him, we have a problem. It's either competence or trust.
That's right.
But I think a leader on a situation like this, they've grown the business. They need to start handing things over in phases and seeing that this person can do it. And then they move to developing that leader to grow the company. Because who knows? That sales leader may end up being the CEO one day or the president.
Right.
But you have to kind of give it to them, right? Like, hey, let's talk about how you're managing pipeline. Let's talk about how you're running those reports. And you just slowly get that CEO down to 20% of their time is on sales and pipeline.
God, my hair just sticks up on my back of my neck because I spend a lot of time with sales leaders and just leaders in general, helping them understand the relationship that they have with this visionary that hired them and trusted them, and how our job is to deliver information up to that person. So when they do roll over at night and have a question about something, A, they can access it, and B, we're comfortable and confident delivering it. Like to your point earlier, if you're hiding something, you're immediately not the right person, because guess what?
Right.
That visionary who figured out how to run a business to get it to 5, 10, 50 million, they're going to figure it out, and you're instantly going to lose credibility. So I spend a lot of time in that hiring and onboarding process just setting expectations for what it looks like to work for an entrepreneur. And to your point earlier on equity, which I hadn't heard said so articulately the way you have, which is it means 1,000 times more to them than it does to the person receiving it. And generally the person receiving it feels entitled to it. But CRMs have become my best friend. And I continue to talk through anybody who's managing projects or dealing with sales calls. The best sales leaders I know brag about their activity. They're so proud of the fact that they're moving the ball forward, that they're having the touches, they're setting their objectives for themselves, and they're following up on it. To go through a pipeline review meeting and have all the information be in there, it's like, I'm like, yes, we did it. We did it. Yeah. All the answers are there.
Well, and then where you want to take them next, and this is for anybody listening and for you, is, all right, great. We have this amazing activity. It's not that we need more activity. Like once it's dialed in, it's more of who are the right people to do the activity with? Can we get more of the right people? Because I was talking to the guy on our team who's starting to handle sales. And I said, hey, look, long-term, what we're going to move is we need more of this type of prospect that's going to convert better. It's less effort. It's higher margin for us. It's bigger deal size. They're happier. We're happier. So it's not, can you just put more in there? Because that costs money and it's time and it's really your attention and focus. But over time, can you start thinking, how do we over time start moving to more just the right type of customer or prospect? Because that starts to make everything operationally and financially work even better. And then the salespeople work less, right? Because we're getting more of the right people.
So in that individual contributor to transitioning to a team member, I'm just thinking, this has been a common theme in the last 3 clients I've had. And I know there's no right answer, but I'm just trying to get an understanding of it. And in the 2 scenarios I'm mentioning, mechanical contracting firm and engineering software services firm, the visionary owner of the business was the sales leader. What's the right amount of engagement to have with that person? I mean, every owner of every business thinks about revenue. It's on their mind. When you bring them in, like, without losing credibility with your sales leader, who's like, I don't need this guy, I can do it better than him. It's like, yeah, but you wouldn't take Tom Brady off the field if he wasn't Tom Brady.
Right. So are you asking how much does the sales leader need to work with the owner or the CEO?
Right. And it's a fine line, because if that sales leader engages the entrepreneur too much, then all of a sudden that entrepreneur's running the sales org and you don't need the sales leader.
I think so. I was talking to a CEO and he really wanted from his sales leader, he didn't come from a sales background, the CEO. And what he really wanted was the sales leader to be a true strategic advisor. Not all of them can do it. And you have to think about where you are by stage. So if you're a $1 to $5 million business, the odds that you're going to hire someone in the role to do the work, to be a strategic advisor, are low. Because sometimes as a strategic advisor, they've played at a higher level in a different type of company. And they would really struggle at that smaller stage because they're having to do it all. And maybe it's really ambiguous. As they move up, that sales leader needs to, I tell people we're working on a recruiting gig for a client and they want somebody who's taken a company from 5 million to 75 million. And I said, look, you might get somebody who's gone from 5 to 20. Yeah. And then you may need somebody to go from 20 to 75. Just understand they're different people. Now, early on, if we're talking small business, to build a relationship, that sales leader and that CEO need to talk every day. And this is, I don't know how long that lasts, 3 months, 4 months. And a lot of CEOs are just like so stressed. They're like, just take it. But it's about getting what's in their head into systems and into process. And it shouldn't be too rigid early. Then maybe it goes to 3 times a week, right? But if you're growing and the sales leader's doing their job and they will grow, you're now going to need to work with the CEO or the COO to start thinking about, all right, we need to think about delivery. We need to think about capacity. And so now we have a different set of issues, and now the team's growing. So I don't think that those touch points matter. It's who's doing what.
Right.
I don't want to minimize. Like, I'm not trying to say, hey, you can become an owner who steps back, but eventually you got to find a new CEO.
Right.
But the CEO and the head of sales need to be talking regularly.
What does a pipeline review meeting look like? What's a solid pipeline review meeting?
Well, there's what they look like and there's what they should look like.
Well,
what
that's
they
what
look
I'm
like,
asking, because for me, I've seen 100 of them and I've led 500 of them. What's the structure?
Let me give you a handful of questions. Here's what it should look like. I don't like going through the CRM and doing it. I like this. I literally want a spreadsheet or a sheet filled out with, here's what we expect to close in the next, you pick your timeline, 2 weeks, 30 days, right? The next 45 to 60 days, and then beyond that. And here's what I want to know on every deal. I want just the headlines. Salespeople love to give you a good Jack Ryan story, and the twists and the turns and the history and how we got here and why. And it's like, and you're sitting there going, I just need this answer. A couple things. I think anybody from management should be able to attend a pipeline meeting, right? CEO, CFO, operations, delivery people, and everybody needs to be able to ask questions. Right. And some of the things I want to know are, first question, on this deal, why are they going to choose us? They have to be able to answer that. You got to say, no, answer that question.
Yeah.
Then you want to know, what's the highest level at which we are having a real conversation? I don't want to know that the CEO was on an email. I want to know, where's the highest level we're having a conversation? What's the conversation we've had around money? And then I want to know, what is the clear next step that both sides have agreed on? Sending a proposal is not a next step.
Yeah.
We are going to have a proposal review and there'll be a decision at the end of that. If you can do that, one, you can get through your pipeline meeting really quick.
Right.
And what you're trying to just get out is like, hey, you tell the salespeople, we love you. You're great. You're working hard. I just don't need all this detail. I mean, I need, like, give me the bottom line up front on these deals. And it takes about 3 or 4 times of doing this for them to learn how to do it.
Are you a fan of applying probability percentages?
Yeah, but the way we do it is different. So one, I want to lay over 2 things. And you and I were talking about assessments before this got going. I don't think any one assessment is the whole thing. I like to stack a couple. So one, by stage in the pipeline, and that's in the sales process, that tells me something if they've hit the milestones, not just because they had a meeting. The other thing that we do, and this is really important, is creating a scorecard. Now, the scorecard, and you'll like this, is not, it's not necessarily about the sales pipeline or the process. Let me say, it's not about the process. It goes into the pipeline. It's based on objective criteria that are predictive of a win independent of the rep. So let me give you an example.
Hold on, say that again.
It's about identifying objectives, not opinion, not feel, not thinks, not seems.
Yes.
Criteria completely independent of the rep's work. So let me give you an example. It might be they've worked with us before. That's a yes or no. That's true or false.
Yep.
It might be they have a new CEO who needs to make a splash. That's objective. And that is predictive, because if you start looking at deals, you start finding these things that tell you when these 5 or 6 factors are true, we win. If 3 of them are false, we lose. And so people will say, well, every deal is different. No. Across a large enough sample size, we get averages. So we look for things like, I'll give you an example. Do they use EOS? So if I am talking to a prospect who uses EOS, I haven't actually done the math on this. I have a much higher likelihood of 1, getting hired, and 2, having success.
I believe.
So you start putting grades on these things, and now you're like, oh, these are the 18 deals we need to focus on. These other ones, they don't hit our grade.
From subjective to objective measurements, and there's
it's not about what the rep thinks. This is true.
Yeah, it's a yes or no. Interesting. Interesting. Because so much, and I know you've heard this and seen this, it's like, well, I feel like this is going to that and feel and this and that.
They
and I
like
think and I
us.
feel and I like, and I had a beer with a guy.
No, no,
and
no.
he's
It's
great.
no. It's hey, they've worked with us before. They hire a consultant. They've done these things, and it's literally everybody can look at it and say, all right, this is a deal. We might lose it, but our odds here are 30 times greater than this deal over here because it's, let's go back to my examples. Former CEO's been there 20 years. They don't use EOS. Two other factors. It's like those people never. So in the next conversation, if you're going to convince us this deal's going to change, you need to go get hard proof from them that they are going to buy from us and why.
That's right. But take those subjective things to a measurable that says something, because otherwise it's all warm, fuzzy feelings. All right. Last question. Tell me about your ideal client type. Like what is some of the people come to you? Like, what do they look like?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you two because nobody likes this, but so on the frontline leadership side, this is typically a blue collar company that really cares about their people. And they know that leadership affects quality, productivity, safety, that if you have turnover, there's a massive expense there. And they're saying, hey, we need to invest in develop our people. On the other side, it's typically a CEO. When I use this phrase mid-market, but they're at 15, 20 million a year up to 200 to 500 million a year. And the CEO says, we need to move sales out of the 90s or early 2000s to the next level. And they're trying to figure out, how do we make sure our forecast is believable? How do we develop our people? I can't completely rely on 2 or 3 Supermen or Wonder Woman to solve my deal. What can we do in our market to make sales a competitive advantage? Those are the two folks we're talking to. Awesome. And one's on the sales side, one's on the leadership side. So, Matt, been so much fun, man.
Always good to hear from you. And I had never even thought about turning a pipeline into more objectives, because it's always such an elusive conversation that's field-based. And I love the idea of finding indicators that may not directly indicate a yes, but they're facts that we can track and use our decisions. Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. Let's talk about it some other time.
Adam, you're the man. I appreciate you, sir. Have a great afternoon, and I'll talk to you soon.
See you, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.